Thank you. All right, everyone. How are we doing today? Sweet. You guys aren't. I'm doing great too. Thanks for asking. You guys aren't too tired from fight night? Oh, perfect. He is. Wake him up. Wake him up. All right. So, I like to start off my Wednesday chapels with the same way Ken starts off the week, giving you guys just a chance to ask questions about me. As far as you guys know, I'm just some dude that you've been screaming at for points all week. And turns out I'm a real person too. I have a life, all right? So I'm gonna give you guys a couple minutes just to ask me any silly questions you guys want. So raise your hands right here. My shoe size? 14. Yeah. Malia. What's my what? Least favorite color? Yellow. I'm sorry. I don't like it at all. Right here. Kobe, LeBron, or Jordan? LeBron. I'm sorry. He's the GOAT. Right here. How old am I? I'll tell you Friday night if you want to know. Right there. What was I doing 10 minutes ago? I don't have a good story for that. I was probably sitting in that chair praying with Ben. Sorry, it's not terribly funny. Right here. Most embarrassing story. I was wondering when that was going to happen. Usually it's the first question. All right, so I have two that are pretty good. Do you guys want the funny one or the sad one? You guys are ruthless. You guys really want to hear the sad one? You want to make me tell that to 200 campers right now? All right, I'll do the sad one first so we can leave on a happy note at least. All right, so I'm in my sophomore year of high school, and you know me, I've got a girlfriend. Whoa. And so my girlfriend's best friend also had a boyfriend, and so the four of us would go on double dates and stuff together. We were having a good time and everything. And so my girlfriend's friend was turning 16, so we were like, hey, let's throw a sweet 16 birthday party and make it awesome. And so we invited like everybody in our grade over to this, I don't even know what it was, some building. Her parents rented it out. And we're going to throw like a big dance party. And so we get there, having a great time, setting up everything, it's going awesome. And then we get to the dance floor, and it's like a middle school dance. We got the girls on one side, giggling, doing whatever girls do, and the guys on the other side just standing, doing nothing, like, oh, I don't want to dance. What if someone thinks I look weird? And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to be the hero of the day. And so I'm standing over here with all the guys. I'm like, all right, it's time to dance. And I walk over across the dance floor. Everyone's watching me. I go over to my girlfriend. I reach out my hand and say, Megan, will you dance with me? And she hits my hand away in front of everybody in the school. And then I go to the bathroom and cry, of course, as I do. And it turns out she just didn't talk to me for another like 3 weeks. So I had no idea what was going on. And it was super embarrassing. Yeah, so you guys feel good about yourself now? All right, now my funny, embarrassing story. And you guys are like, oh, that one was funny. But it wasn't funny for me, okay? It hurt. My funny, most embarrassing moment. Has anyone in here gone through Jumpstart? Yeah. All right. So one of the big things we do on Jumpstart is go to the bog, right? All right. So when you're at the bog, like obviously you're not going to wear your nicest clothes. You're going to wear some crappy clothes. And you got to wear long pants because there's like sticks and stuff you don't want to get scratched up. So just to keep those safety concerns in the way. So I'm not going to wear my nice pants. So I'm wearing some old sweatpants with holes in them. And we go down to the bog. It's a smaller week. And so we were cruising along, getting through things faster. And went to the middle of the part. I think the middle, that's what it's called. The first part in the middle. And did the ostrich and all that stuff. Got all boggy. And then we went over to the false bottom. So it's just like, they say it's like 80 feet down, just straight down to the ground, just all water. And so typically we take the campers and then we like grab their hands and then we dunk them down and pull them back up. And it's like a symbolization of like the dirt, the bog and all that stuff, and it's like being washed away. And so like we got a spiritual application for that. And so this week it was smaller, moving along like I said. And so Austin, the program director, goes, "All right, counselors, you guys are going too." Because usually we don't have enough time for the counselors to do that part. So I'm like, oh, sweet. Like I love the bog, so I'm pumped to get. Like I don't have much hair, so the bog doesn't really bother me too much. And so I look at Lance and Mikey, the two other counselors in there, and I'm like, "All right, guys, give me a full extension. I want to go down as far as I possibly can. I want to see if there's anything down there. Is it really 80 feet? I wanted to test that." So Mikey and Lance bring me all the way down and so far down and rip me back up as fast as they can. And my pants did not come with me. And so they didn't notice that. They had both my hands, so I don't have control of my hands right now. They had both of my hands, and they're trying to put me back onto the dock. And I'm like screaming, "Mikey, Lance, no, put me down, put me down, put me down, put me down." And there was for everyone to see. All in his glory was out there. So luckily for me, when we go to the bog, we split guys and girls up. So it's just the dudes, or else I'm probably be locked up. So thank God for that, amen. So that's my most embarrassing story. We got time for a couple more questions. I already know what it is. Say it, Ben. The most noteworthy thing I've said on the date. This is another very embarrassing story of mine. This happened last year. I was talking to this girl, went on one date with her. Keep that in mind, went on one date. That was all we got to. Because we were like sitting on the tailgate of my truck, watching the sunset. Oh, it was so romantic. And eating B-dubs, as I do. And I don't remember exactly what she said to me, but she was asking something like, "What are you most looking forward to?" Or "What are you most excited for whatever?" I don't remember exactly. But I remember thinking like, okay, I'm a weird dude, so I gotta say something weird. I gotta be myself. But I'm also on a date, so I gotta be flirty. And so without any second thought, one thing popped in my mind and go, all right, I'm running with it. I'm going full speed ahead. So I put my hand up like to give her a high five, like that's what you do on dates, I don't know. I go, "To marry you." And I just caught myself like, oh gosh. And I put my hand down and just looked away and just like shoved the wings into my mouth. And like, I just ruined every chance I had right here. Why did I even say that? And sorry, that was our only date. It ended right after that, but who knows? Maybe that's what I was saying. Maybe it was something else. I don't know. But that was fun. Topher, what you got? Favorite animal? Can I say dragons, or do they not count? Something I like dragons the best, obviously, but something existent. I'd probably go with the hippo, because they just got very underrated. All right, we'll do one more question, Cade. I was not aware of this. Why don't they breathe out of their mouth? Well, it's probably a fart. I don't know. All right, we're going to get started now. All right. So before we get going into this sermon, I want to preface by saying this. I'm a college student. I'm not a pastor. So this isn't typically what I do. I've wrote this. I've spoken on it a few times, but I'm going to need some help. So I'm going to ask for two of you guys to pray for me. So if you just raise your hand, two guys pray for me, that God will just give me the words to speak, and that it won't just be me going around talking about whatever. It'll be God speaking through me. So we got one right here. Can we get a second person? Right there. All right, so you can open us, you can close us whenever you're ready. Amen. All right. So there's one quick funny story I want to tell. Last week when I said that same thing, asked people to pray for me. And this camper raises her hand and goes, all right, yeah, you can pray. And she just absolutely flamed me. She's like, Lord, Jake's up here. He has no idea what he's doing. I don't know why he's up there. And I'm like, that's not what I meant at all. I have a plan for what I'm going to say. I'm not just going up here randomly. All right, so with that said, we're going to begin. So we're going to talk a lot about leadership today. So if you want the title of the sermon, I'll give it to you right away, is 3 Rules to Leading Successfully. 3 Rules to Leading Successfully. And so we'll start off, what are some traits you guys know about leadership? I'm going to be interacting with you guys as much as I can, so raise your hands, I'll call on you. Traits you know about leadership. Not all at once. There you go.
Better to lead by example than just yelling.
Yeah, leading by example. Know how to follow, yeah.
Have a lot of trust.
A lot of trust. Courage. Servants, yeah. Patience. Yeah, working with them. Sounds like you've heard this one before, Ben. Right there? Yeah, you always have more to learn. All right, we'll get one more right here. What was that? Keep each other's heads up? Yeah, I like it. All right, those are some great traits. So what we're going to be talking a lot about is servant leadership. So that's what Jesus demonstrates multiple times throughout the Gospels and just how he teaches us how to lead. And so I've heard of some sermons of pastors that will talk about, like, God has never called us to lead. God only calls us to follow him, which in a way is true. But I would very much disagree with what they're trying to say there, because following God can sometimes be the hardest thing you can do in your life. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage, a tremendous amount of sacrifice in order to follow God. And in that case, I'd say that would make you a leader. So it takes so much courage to share the gospel with somebody, right? Because you're putting yourself out there, putting all your beliefs and putting your entire self out there, trying to see if this person will accept Christ. And you don't know if they're going to reject you. You don't know if they're going to accept it or not. And so that is a tough thing to do, and that takes a tremendous amount of leadership. So I'd even go as far as this and say that if you are a Christian, if you have accepted Christ into your heart, then God has called you to be a leader. So some of you may think you're just followers and you're not a leader, but I'm here to tell you, if God is in your heart, then he's calling you to lead. And so I've told that to some guys in one of my small groups once, and his response was, well, Jake, if all of us here are leaders, then who's going to follow? Well, that's kind of like the baseline for being a leader, is you have somebody following you, right? Because if you're a leader with no followers, then you're just taking a walk. And so I said to him, well, why can't you be both? Like, for right now, in my job, Elliot's my boss. I follow Elliot's lead. And your counselors are working with me this week, and so they're following my lead, and you guys are following your counselors' leads. And then people back at home, your younger siblings, are following your leads. And so there's this huge chain. It's not just you're leading every single person. No, you're leading some people, you're following some people. So just because you're a leader, just because or just because you think you're a follower or you think you're a leader, doesn't mean you're just one or the other. You can be both. All right, so now I'm going to show you this pyramid. It's up there. There we go. So you've probably seen something like this before, but on the left side, we have traditional leadership. This is what culture shows us. This is what kind of what we're just taught, seeing through businesses and like through history with like monarchs and kingdoms and stuff like that. We have the leaders at the top, and everyone is serving the leader. And then down at the bottom, we have like the peasants, the the lower class people, and then working their way in between. And so when Jesus came down to earth, now keep in mind, Jesus is God, right? Jesus is God in human form. And he came down from his throne to be a carpenter on earth. Born as a baby, went through everything that we've gone through, was tempted and everything like that. And it's like he didn't have to do any of that. And so what Jesus shows us by doing this is he took that pyramid and flipped it upside down, which is what we see on the right side. I mixed up my left and right for a second. What we see on the right side, we have that pyramid flipped upside down, with the leaders are actually serving the people that are below them, as in terms that we would understand. So the CEOs, the kings, the leaders are on the bottom of that, working to serve the people on top, above, you get what I'm saying. I'm all mixed up. All right, so as a leader, your goal is to progress your team's cause and to strengthen your followers. It is not to progress yourself. So you got to keep that in mind, because if you're a leader and all you care about is you, then you're going to be doing an awful job. And time again in history, we see people that are leading for themselves make awful mistakes, and they're famous for their awful mistakes. So let's keep in mind, like, somebody who, like, here, I'll interact with you guys. Name a leader that would not lead for themselves. Who can you guys think of in history? A leader who was, like, leading for a cause or to strengthen their followers. Right here? Jesus, yeah, of course. There's one. That's always a good answer. Martin Luther King, yes. King David, yeah. Gandhi. I don't know much about Gandhi, but I'll agree with you. Abraham Lincoln, yeah. So those are all great examples. They all had a cause, and they wanted to fix that cause. They didn't want to empower themselves. So now, who are some leaders out there that were only out there to try to lead, to increase their power? Caesar, yeah. Hitler, yes, that's a big one. Stalin, yeah. All right, I think we got the picture. So Hitler is always the example I use. Hitler had tremendous leadership skills. You can't deny that. He took an entire country and was able to conform that into Nazism and conform them to do terrible things to people. And you can't just do that if you have no leadership skills. So you can be a good leader, you can be a bad leader, and it just depends on how you use those skills and who you are using them for. And so if fame is your goal as a leader, then you are not a leader, you are a boss, and your followers are slaves to you. So I know we don't like that word slaves. It can be very just offensive to people, but that's the truth of it. It's an extreme situation, so I'm going to use an extreme example, because look back to Hitler. That was an extreme example. That was bad. We don't want to repeat that. Look back to Stalin. Same thing. We don't want to repeat that. Slavery. We don't want to repeat that. And that's what they all have in common, is because all of them didn't care about anybody else. They only cared about increasing their power. And so that is what we want to avoid. So now we look at this next picture. We've got a boss on the top and a leader at the bottom. So what do we notice about these two pictures?
The boss is leading everyone from behind.
Yeah, the boss is leading from behind.
It appears that he's making the job more difficult.
Yeah, the boss is making it more difficult.
The bottom picture, the boss is like leading the group. He's like encouraging the others behind him.
Yeah, you guys probably can't see it from your seat, but if you look, there's no way you can see it, so I'll just describe it. On the top picture, you can see they're frowning. Everyone that's working is frowning because they got that more weight to carry. The boss is just screaming at them. And at the bottom, you got the leader who's leading them from in the trenches, and they got a little smile on their face because they're being encouraged. All right, so we're going to move on for the sake of time. You guys get the picture. Excuse me. All right, so big takeaway from this is the boss sits back on his throne and tries to lead his group, but all he's doing is making the mission harder. He's doing it for the sake of his convenience and his comfort, but he's just making everyone else's lives harder. Well, the leader is sacrificing his comfort to be with his team and to lead his team, encourage his team to get the mission done, because he doesn't care about himself nearly as much as he cares about the mission at hand. That is his goal. His goal is to get that cart to wherever they're going. I lost my spot, sorry. Okay, yeah, here we go. All right, so if thinking about leaders being in the trenches, who does that remind you of? I'll give you a hint. There are 20 of them that have been with us all week. Oh, I heard a whisper. Travis? Yeah, what's Travis's position? He's a counselor. There we go. Yes. Your counselors are fantastic examples of leaders. And why is that? Yeah, they help us in the activities. They're playing them with you guys. What are some other ways? They encourage you, yeah. They better be at least. So I didn't hear that. Yeah, they're in. Wait a second. Does that mean I'm a boss? I'm just joking with you. Yeah, they're in the cabins with you guys. Anything else? One more? They empathize with you. Yeah, perfect. You guys are rock stars. So your counselors are fantastic examples of leaders. That's kind of why they're in a counseling position, because they're great leaders. All right. So I know what you're thinking. Jake, you're giving a sermon. When are we going to read the Bible? Don't worry. We're almost there. So before we get into that, I got a story to tell about just kind of how this sermon came to be. And so my first year at camp, so 2019, going through training, I had a lot of baggage carried with me. And I was so much depression, so much anxiety was just stored up in my heart. And I was just a mess all around. So we were doing this one activity. They try to just make it hard on you. And so we had like these boards on our feet, and then we had these ropes that we had to walk with as like a whole team. And our team was just not doing well, and they just kept adding more challenges to us. And so one of my friends, Luke, who was supposed to be mute, so he broke the rules a little bit. He was supposed to be mute, but he looked at me, he goes, "Jake, you need to lead." And he said that, I just looked at him, and just my heart sank. I'm just like, "Look, how am I supposed to lead? You want me to? There's so many other people here. Why can't they lead? Like, I am not a leader." And so I ran, after that was over, I kept my composure, ran back to the bathroom, and as I do, broke down and started crying in the bathroom. And yeah, that seems to be a theme, huh? And I'm just like, "God, why did you bring me here? I'm not a leader. I can't do this. How am I supposed to lead 10, 11, 12 campers every single week if I can't even lead myself, if I don't have any confidence in myself?" And I was just struggling. And so a couple days later, one of my friends comes up to me, same friend from the Bog story, Mikey. Mikey comes up to me with a big smile on his face. I'm thinking, now, you guys might know Mikey, actually. He was junior high director in 2018, I want to say. And yeah, so you guys know him. He's kind of crazy. He's nuts. And so he came up to me with a big old smile on his face. I'm thinking, oh no, Mikey, what did you do? And he comes up to me. And so some of the punishments that we have at camp, if we like break curfew or something like that, is we get to clean a bus. And so Mikey comes up to me and he goes, "Going to clean a bus, Jake," with a big old smile on his face. I go, "All right, Mikey, you're nuts." And I turned away, just not even thinking much about it. But I remember thinking afterwards, like, why was he so excited to clean a bus? And so that's what we're going to get into today. So these are 3 rules to leading successfully. So you guys want to turn in your Bibles to John chapter 13. John chapter 13. If you're not quite familiar with your Bible, John is looks like the last fifth of your Bible. It's the 4th book in the New Testament. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, one of the Gospels. I'll give you a minute to get there. All right, so I'm going to read from chapter 13, verses 1 through 8. It says, "Now before the feast of the Passover, Jesus, knowing that his hour had come, that he would depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During supper, the devil, having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon, to betray him. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come forth from God, and he was going back to God, got up from supper and laid aside his garments, and taking a towel, he girded himself. Then he poured water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. So he came to Simon Peter. He said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered and said to him, "What I do you do not understand now, but you will understand hereafter." Peter said to him, "Never shall you wash my feet." Jesus answered him, "If I do not wash you, you have no part with me." All right, so the first point of this sermon, first thing I want to talk about is everything is an opportunity to serve. Everything is an opportunity to serve. So I know in our culture, washing someone's feet just sounds like one of the weirdest things you could possibly do. Like, why on earth would I wash somebody's feet when they come to my house? But this was a big cultural thing back in the day. So just kind of geography-wise, this all took place on like the eastern end of the Mediterranean Sea. And there's a lot of desert areas over there, pretty sandy, very hot, humid. Jeez, that scared me. So it's very hot, very humid, very sandy, and there's no cars or bikes or anything like that, so they're walking around pretty much everywhere they're going. And so they didn't have the Kobe 10s or the Jordan 15s back in the day, or I don't know, whatever you guys are wearing, the Converse. All they had, all right, try to keep it together. So they had like the Air Bethlehems, or like the Jesus sandals, right? That was all they were wearing. And so sand's getting all on them, rocks are getting in their shoes, getting their feet cut up, feet are sweating, feet are getting dirty, and so your feet are just gross back in this day. Like nobody in this time is asking for foot pics, right? And so their feet are just looking gross. And so Jesus took this job that typically they would say for servants, like, you of lesser value, you go and wash these people's feet because I don't want to touch them. But Jesus said no. He got on his knees, took his own clothes, poured his bucket of water, and began washing the disciples' feet. He took that as an opportunity to serve his followers, to serve his disciples. He didn't take that as an opportunity to show his status. He got on his knees and showed that he can serve as well. So a great quote, I don't know who said it, but this is a great quote that I think about all the time. It goes like this: if you think you're too big for the little things, then you're too little for the big things. So if you think you're too big, you think you're all high and mighty, and that this little task seems so just unnecessary, then you're actually too little to do the big things that you think you are. And so like this could be something like walking past a piece of trash on the ground. Something as simple as that. Be like, just walking by, like, I don't need to pick that up. That's what the janitors are for. That's what the custodians are for. That's what the cleaning crew's for. And you walk by. And that's just such an awful way or such a great example of serving terribly and just not serving at all. Like, how hard is it for you just to bend over, pick up the trash, throw it in the trash can? And now someone else doesn't have to do that. And now our camp looks better, your schools look better, wherever you're at, it just looks nicer. And so it's just helping out a ton of people. And even though it seems like such a small task, it's just what we're called to do. And all right, so are there any horse girls out here? Any horse girls out here? I know that sounds super random. I see it slumping down. No shame. I like horses. Raise your hand proud. All right, we can put that next picture up. And I got a question for you. Which horse is the leader of this herd? The one in the back? Yes, the one in the back is the leader. When I was looking this stuff up, this was new to me, so I'm like, all right, this is going to be something that nobody's going to know. But every week I do this, everybody knows it. So I guess I was the only one. But anyways, yes, the horse in the back is the leader. Now that seems kind of backwards, doesn't it? Shouldn't a leader be in front with people behind? Shouldn't the leader be leading? But this is a little bit different. This leader is serving his entire herd. Herd, right? Not pack. I think it's herd. So this horse is leading its entire herd. And so typically, when horses are running, they're running from danger. Typically, there's something coming at them that's going to try to eat them. That's how the food chain goes. And so they're running away from that. And so by the leader putting himself in the back of this herd, he's putting himself in the most dangerous spot. He's saying, if any one of us goes down, it's going to be me. I'm not going to let anyone else go down. I'm taking this hit. And so that is an excellent way in nature of servant leadership. All right, so for our application point, for our application step on this first point, I want you to write down somebody that you can serve and in what way when you go home. Write down somebody that you can serve and in what way when you go home. So, in what way is a key point here? Because anybody can just write down a name, like, my friend Sam back home, I'll write down his name, and then I'll never think about it again. So I want you to write down what you're actually going to do to serve them. And so you actually have an action step, something that you can tangibly do to serve them. I'll give you a second to do that. All right, and that's going to take us right into our next point, which is do everything to the best of your ability. Do everything to the best of your ability. So we look at verse 5. Where'd it go there? If we look at verse 5 in here, it's a very small detail, but he says, Then he poured water into the basin and began to wash the disciples' feet. Now, if you look at that word disciples, it has an apostrophe after the S, which means it's plural, which means it's more than one disciple, more than one foot. And so in the story, Jesus only gets a reaction from Peter, right? We don't hear anything about John or, I'm blanking on all their names, Andrew or any of the other disciples. We only get a reaction from Peter. And so if you think about it, Jesus could have just washed Peter's feet, got the reaction from Peter, and moved on, and got the Bible story, and we would never know the difference. But Jesus, that apostrophe is so key because it tells us that Jesus, I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words today, that Jesus did not just wash one person's feet. He washed all of his disciples' feet. He took that opportunity to serve, and he did it to the best of his ability. And if we look at Colossians 3:17, you don't have to turn there. I'm just going to read it. It says, Whatever you do, in word or in deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks through him to God the Father. And how does that even work? So, if everything I need to do needs to be glorifying God, whether in word or in deed, do we all just need to be pastors? Do we all need to go overseas, be missionaries overseas? No, that's not what that's saying at all. But so then that brings up the question, all right, so how do I honor God? How do I glorify God just in my everyday life? Like, if I'm playing sports, how is that honoring God? If I'm reading a book, how is that honoring God? If I'm doing homework, how does that honor God? And so I'm going to take you to Romans chapter 12. Romans chapter 12, verse 4 through 8. And that says, For just as we have many members in one body, and all the members do not have the same function, so we, who are many, are one body in Christ, and individually members one of another. Since we have gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, each of us is to exercise them accordingly. If prophecy, according to the proportion of his faith, if service, in his serving, or he who teaches in his teaching, or he who exhorts in his exhortation, he who gives with liberality, he who leads with diligence, he who shows mercy with cheerfulness. And so something that these verses are saying is use your gifts 100%. Don't just do a half job. Don't just do minimal effort just to get whatever needs to be done. Do everything and excel in it. Give everything to the best of your ability. It says, if you're teaching, teach with diligence. You didn't say just teach until maybe half the class understands. No, it says teach with diligence. Make sure everyone knows what's going on. And so the Bible talks about a lot of gifts, a lot of spiritual gifts, but then also God gives us more gifts than that. He also gives us the fruits of the Spirit if we have Christ inside of us. But then he's also given us physical gifts, each one of us. For instance, I'd say it's a gift from God that I'm tall. I like being tall, and I can use that for a lot of different things. Or some of you may be very fast. Some of you may be very smart. Some of you may be super musically talented. And so in those cases, God's given you those gifts, so use those gifts to the best of your ability. Go all out with them. So Jesus washed all of his disciples' feet. And so how do you glorify God? Through sports, through homework, through singing, all that? Do it to the best of your ability. Use what he has given you. All right, so now you're thinking something like this. So all I got to do to glorify God is just to try my best? Just do everything all out? All right, we're getting there. That's the first step of it. And so now the second part of point 2 is do everything for God to the best of your ability. Do everything for God to the best of your ability. So you're doing everything 100%, but it's not about you, right? Going back to our first point, it's not about you. So you need to be doing it for God. So take every opportunity you can, playing sports. Make sure God is known. Make sure you're not out there swearing, out there pushing people around, acting like a jerk. Make sure you're not being boastful or bragging, because you should be glorifying God with whatever you're doing. Doing everything the best you can to glorify God, using the gifts that He has given you. So now for our application step here is to write down a non-Christian place. There's probably a better word for that, but that's all I could come up with. Write down a non-Christian place that your effort can reflect God, and how. So something like at school, maybe with a group of friends that don't follow God. Write down a non-Christian place that your effort can reflect God, and how. All right, and that's going to bring us to our third point. Our third point is have joy in every situation. Have joy in all situations. Have joy in all situations. And so I was talking to one of my friends about this point, and she was saying, Jake, and at first I had this as choose joy. That was my point, choose joy. And she was saying, Jake, you can't just say choose joy. It just makes people mad. Because if somebody is going through something tough, if maybe a death in the family, someone's very sick, you guys are moving away from your home, or something like that, something just awful has happened, and you're just down, you're hurt, you're upset, and someone comes up to you and goes, all right, hey, it'll be okay, just choose joy, and everything will be better. Choose joy. They're going to hate that. I hated every part of that. They're going to hate every part of that. So if you just tell them choose joy, it gives them no direction. Like, you might have heard the term Christianese. It's Christianese, which means nobody knows what it really means. Not even Christians know what I mean, because it's just sayings that we use all the time, and that it just gives no direction, like choose joy. Another one is like follow God. It's a great thing to do, definitely follow God, but how do you do it? We need direction and how to do it. You can't just give me 2 words and expect me to change my entire life. And so, first thing we need to do is figure out what joy actually is. I think culture combines joy and happiness into one word a lot of the time, but I'd say they're very different. So let's take happiness. What would you guys say is the root of happiness? Or I say the root of all emotions. I'm asking you guys. What was that? Temporary? Yeah. Anything else? I'm looking for one specific word. Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to sum up what you said. Circumstance. So like happiness, emotion has a root of circumstance. I mean, circumstance is what drives that. Circumstance is what would change that. So then what would the root of joy be?
Knowing that Christ is ever present in whatever situation or trial that you're in.
Yeah. I'm looking for one specific word though, but you're right. Happiness? I would disagree with that. What would be the root of joy? What's that? A good circumstance? Not quite. Hope is definitely a part of it. I'm looking for something specific though. Jesus, what did Jesus do? He died on the cross and gave us salvation. So I'm going to say the root of joy is salvation, because joy is one of the fruits of the Spirit. And so we can only get that fruit of the Spirit from accepting Christ into our heart, which would be through salvation. So if happiness has a root of circumstance and joy has a root of salvation. So if they have different roots, then they probably can't be the same thing. And so something crazy about the fruits of the Spirit is they're unconditional. So the fruits of the Spirit are gifts from God that He gives to Christians so that we can love people, we can show joy in times of trouble, have self-control, and all these things. The list goes on, but they're given to us from God through salvation. One sec, I lost my spot. There we go. Okay. And so, to have joy, you need to have Christ. And so, if joy's root isn't circumstance, then that means nothing else can take that joy away from you, because God's unconditional. The gifts that he gives to us are unconditional. And so, happiness and joy can't be the same thing, because we can be happy, or we can be joyful and sad at the same time, right? Like, what's the time that we could be joyful and sad at the same time? Any ideas? When what? When a parent dies, yeah. If we know that that parent is going to heaven, that should bring us joy, but we're still going to be sad because they're not with us anymore. So yeah, that's a great example. So if we can be happy, if we can be sad and joyful at the same time, you can't be happy and sad at the same time. Those are conflicting emotions. And so joy is unconditional, while happiness comes through circumstance. So something my mom wanted me to tell you when I was going over this with her, Sandra Lee, you may have heard of her. She said, oh, I'm just kidding. I'm getting ahead of myself. My bad. And so something that we need to think about for joy is how we can practice using that joy is through thankfulness. Because when we're thankful, our focus is on the good. And when we're focused on the good, our focus will go towards God, because all good comes from God, and joy comes from God as well. So thankfulness is like the building blocks of joy. Thankfulness is the building blocks of joy. So I think there's a second point on there for that. There we go. Have thanksgiving in all situations. Have thanksgiving in all situations. All right, so now we'll go to my mom, Sandra Lee. She told me when I was going over this point with her, she said, Jake, you got to be careful with this one, because you need to be thankful in all situations, but not thankful for all situations. So what I mean by that is, no matter what's going on, we can always find a way to give thanks. But there's some things in life that we just are not thankful for, and we shouldn't be thankful for. I know some of you guys have some rough stories, and you've gone through a lot of tough things. And some of you have gone through abuse. And I'm saying, no, you should not be thankful for being abused. Like, that's crazy talk. It pains me to say that, because I just hate to know that some of you guys have gone through that stuff. And we don't need to be thankful for that. What we do need is to see the good that it can bring. Know that you've gone through this tough stuff, and I'm sorry that you've gone through that, but there's going to be more people that are going to go through that tough stuff. And since you know about that, you know how that feels, you can help those people out. And so you can be thankful for what is to come, but not thankful for what has happened. All right, and so in order to practice being thankful, because it's going to be tough to be, like, in those tough situations, it's going to be tough to give thanks. And so we need to practice being thankful so we can use that thankfulness in times when we need it. And so a good time is to put yourself in situations to be thankful. So I'm saying, when you're at like those uphill points and you're having a great time, grand old time, things are going well, do something that you typically wouldn't normally do that you could be thankful for, that's something you wouldn't typically be thankful for. So that's kind of a lot of words, may not make sense, but I'll give you an example. Even if you think I'm crazy, you guys all just did this yesterday evening at fight night. So, show of hands, how many of you guys are going to go back home and say, all right, I'm going to go get all my friends together and get a big bucket of slop, and we're just going to play in the slop? Who's going to do that? Don't lie to me. Put your hands down. No one's here is going to do that, because none of your friends are going to do that with you. They're going to say, you are nuts. What do you mean? I'm not going to throw a bucket of slop over my head? So then why do we do it at camp? Why is it's suddenly fun at camp for some weird reason? And that's because you guys are already having such an amazing time. You guys are already pumped up. You just want to win. You want to be loud. You want to be crazy. And so you're like, I'll do anything to get points. And it's going to be a ton of fun because everyone's going to be watching me. And it's going to be crazy. Right? And if you just go home and be like, hey, let's pour a bucket of slop on us, guys. You're like, get away from me, you psycho. And so that's one situation that you guys have already done. You put yourself in a situation to be thankful. And Jesus also shows us this. In Matthew 4, you may have heard the story. Jesus goes into the wilderness for 40 days, and he doesn't eat, which is already tough to do. And so Jesus, now he's God, so he's got a little advantage over us. Just a little bit, right? So he goes into the wilderness when he's on a high point, and he puts himself in a situation to thank God. He lets Satan come talk to him, and tempt him. And he goes, no, I don't want it. He's in a good spot. He says no, and he gives his thanks to God through that. So even Jesus put himself in situations to be thankful. And so now, what does this have to do with being a leader? How does joy tie into this story of being a leader? And so how many of you like doing your math homework? All right, all right, that is actually surprising. You're not supposed to raise your hand for that. So the majority of you don't like doing math homework, right? And for the people that don't like doing math homework, how much effort do you put into that math homework? Pretty minimal, right? Like, do better in your math homework. That's not an excuse. But you probably don't put as much into doing your homework. So how many of you love sports? I like sports, so I use that example. A lot of you guys like sports. How much effort do you guys put into your sports? A lot of effort into your sports, right? Because you guys like it. And so here's my point with this. If you're going to do everything to the best of your ability, you got to have joy in what you do. Because if you don't have joy in what you do, you're not going to give it your best effort. You can psych yourself up for maybe a little bit, but in the long run, you'll fall short every time. You got to have that joy in order to give everything to the best, in order to do everything to the best of your ability. And then through doing everything to the best of your ability, you can serve others so much more. And so the last point I want to give to you guys is this. When you can serve joyfully to the best of your ability, you'll become a far greater leader than you ever have been before. Okay, it's up there. When you can serve joyfully to the best of your ability, you'll become a far greater leader than you ever have been before. And so let's go back to our story with Mikey on the bus. So Mikey comes up to me with a big smile on his face, right? Doing Mikey things, being crazy. And I'm thinking, why on earth would this guy be pumped up about cleaning a bus? First reason why Mikey's pumped up about cleaning a bus is because now somebody else doesn't have to clean that bus. We got some people in here that are on the cleaning crew, and I can tell you what, they do not like cleaning those buses. Those buses are filthy. They got jump starters with bog on them. They got fresh starters who haven't showered in 3 days. Sitting on that bus, dirty, slimy, gross. I don't know, whatever else is in that bus. They're not the cleanest things when the week is over, until we clean them, obviously. Cleaning crew does a great job with that. But it takes a long time to clean those buses. And so Mikey got in trouble, had to clean the bus. He took that as an opportunity to serve the cleaning crew. He said, now they don't have to clean this bus. They can have more free time. I'll clean this bus for them. The second reason why Mikey had a big smile on his face was because he was going to show everyone that cleaning, I'm stumbling over my words, he's going to do everything to the best of his ability through his cleaning. He's going to glorify God through his cleaning by giving it the best that he can. And the third point is that he's going to have joy even doing something he doesn't want to do. He's going to have joy doing something even he doesn't want to do, because that way he can show people how a leader is supposed to act. All right. That is my sermon. Now, I'll say, I forgot about the story with Mikey, so that wasn't supposed to be the end. So I didn't end the way I was originally planning on. But we got it all in, and we're good to go. So I'm going to pray us out, and then we'll go on to our next thing. Dear God, thank you for this day. And just thank you so much for just all the opportunities that we have here just to be joyful, and just all the opportunities we have here just to have so much fun at camp and just learn a ton about you. Lord, I just pray for all the campers in here that they will know that you are with them, no matter what it is they're going through, no matter what trials they've had to face. I just want them to know that you love them, you are for them, and you're down in the trenches with them, leading them. Lord, as these campers go on this week, I just pray that they will look to you for guidance, and that they will want to be in a relationship with you, and just want to have you inside their heart so that they can live a more joyful life. Here I pray, amen. All right. It is now time for trust initiatives. So you guys can get with your counselors, and they will get on going with that.